Talking about older media, especially older media that is generally regarded as historically significant for its genre or medium, is always a lot of fun, if not without its own trappings or pitfalls. It would be very easy for me to praise Attack No.1 and just blindly say that everyone should go watch it, or see it simply because it's important as one of the first major sports anime in the shoujo category, but that's not enough. Having watched the entire 190 plus episodes of Astro Boy from 1963, there is a definite difference between something to watch that's old and good versus being exposed to something for its value. Astro Boy is the latter, a series that has its old-timey charm to be sure, but even by the standards of Saturday morning cartoon fare, it just doesn't do it for me. I could never actually justify to myself telling someone to commit to seeing the whole thing, but I would readily say that watching a few episodes is more than necessary to understand exactly how anime got here from there. In the case of Attack No.1, however, I can say that it fits the former. It has palpable energy running throughout that, even in the midst of its late 60s anime jank, takes no prisoners and spikes apprehension right back in your face. A grand setup to the whole affair. And part of the reason for this grand setup lies in how it positions its main character, Aayhara Kozue, and the focal point that the narrative will revolve around. Her first impression is as impressive as it is commanding, a beautiful girl that immediately stands out for sleeping in class, yet knowing the answers the teacher poses anyway, and taking his cue to go to the nurse's office if his class is that uninteresting. From the first minute, it's clear that Aayhara is not a delinquent. Her behavior might perhaps leave something to be desired, but answering the question correctly makes clear that she is not an unintelligent character. Considering how she walks out, carries 2 leaves caught in the window, and is commented upon by all her classmates, Aayhara is herself positioned outside the conventional hierarchy of the school, standing as a lone figure who has both the poise and tenacity to earn the admiration of her fellow students, as well as stand up to the challenges posed by the authority figures within the school. This duality within her character splinters in 2 different directions, both of which come together as the episode continues. The first direction occurs when she's sitting by the tree and watching the school's volleyball team practice. After returning an errant ball hit in her direction, Aayhara is approached by the team's captain, Katsuragi Yumi, and asked to participate in the school's team since she's sitting by and watching them practice day after day. Aayhara declines since she says she hates losing, and the team is left to question whether Aayhara called them losers by proxy. It's difficult to not read this interaction as precisely that, since the captain recognizes Aayhara's talent by the return of the ball, having the invitation to join the team rejected and phrased in the way Aayhara did so reads as unusually cold. Aayhara mentioning losing as the stated reason does, even if only indirectly, communicate that the volleyball team is not good enough to be worth her time or attention. Narratively, Attack No.1 has positioned the volleyball team as being of the same lack of importance for Aayhara as the sensei from before. In both interactions, she chose the option to walk away from people who were socially recognized as having power. Aayhara's character established in only 5 minutes of television that she will march to the beat of her own drum, and that to her, respect is a thing to be earned rather than a thing to be implicitly obeyed. This is, however, an attitude that could be taken as needlessly cavalier to those who are more expectant of others to do what they say unquestioned, which is why the volleyball team takes umbrage with Aayhara's response. The second direction occurs when Aayhara finds herself befriending a bunch of girls who themselves are delinquents of the school, labeled useless by their peers and teachers for their roguishness, bad grades, and overall dislike of authority. They take an instant liking to Aayhara, essentially appointing her their leader because of how she stood up to sensei, and asking her to partake in a... Well, look, it's early anime trying to depict people dancing. It's not exactly going to be winning any awards. But honestly, I'd rather watch this than that one clip of Kevin and Princess Lana dancing from Captain N, the Game Master. It's only when Aayhara's soon-to-be-revealed relative Tsutomu, as vice president of the student council, approaches that the girls run away. He suggests to Aayhara that she should not entertain herself with the other delinquents, but Aayhara pays him no heed either and castigates him, openly declaring that she hates her new school, but not the friends she's just made who treat her better than anybody else around. Between Aayhara getting in good graces with the delinquents and their go-go dancing, getting on the sensei's nerves, and the outright castigation of the volleyball team and their captain, distrust or disobedience of authority runs throughout this first episode. Even her own family is not spared. This matters since, oftentimes, an anime will position its outside conventional authority figure through some kind of muscular display of strength or absurdly cavalier attitude to demonstrate their prowess to the viewer, like Windbreaker with Sakura, or Kujo Jotaro with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stardust Crusaders, among others. Make no mistake, Aayhara does this too. However, her stance is not to cause a ruckus on purpose, have some kind of validation of her existence and philosophy, or even just because someone got on her bad side. She's not looking for a fight. If she were, the other delinquents would not have been so quick to look at her as one of their own, as it's entirely likely that they might have disregarded her as haughty or brash otherwise. If anything, the tensions that arise are more the natural consequence of Aayhara's own ennui and self-confidence intermixing, someone who knows what they are intellectually and physically capable of, but running up against the wall of boredom. Her quarrel is less with other people, even though they say or do things that she doesn't find particularly impressive, and more with a kind of abstract adriftness, for which other characters and their presumed positions of authority are unintentional casualties. As she says when she's talking to Tsutomu by the beach, it's not that she wants to skip class, or by extension, be rude to the volleyball team, but her motivation just doesn't seem to be there. Therefore, she is needing some kind of way to challenge that inner strength into something to get passionate about. And it's that passion-seeking that forges the bond between her and the other delinquents. However they may have gotten there in the first place, the show doesn't provide a direct answer. The delinquents are themselves bound together through their own distrust of authority and lack of direction. Aayhara joining them as friends, and eventually teammate, as explained in a few minutes, is not the best thing that could happen to them in order to set them on the right path, but rather it gives them some kind of direction for their frustrations and aggravations. This is a similar principle to what Yatora from Blue Period experiences when Ayukawa jumps over them and he sees the art in the room for the first time. A smart student whose delinquent lifestyle leaves him without a clear path forward to anything, finding something to focus that inner energy onto. It's a sentiment that Hogo-sensei, one of the staff members who actually has some sympathy for Aayhara and the delinquents, recognizes. It's important to remember that this does not somehow make the delinquents these amazing we-can-do-no-wrong characters, as the entire friendship is nearly destroyed when there's a misunderstanding concerning Aayhara and Tsutomu talking to each other, and the delinquents thinking Aayhara acted as a tattletale. Because they misinterpreted Aayhara's conversation as a bending to authority, it takes Tsutomu himself holding back a blow from one of the girls to set the record straight. The resolution to this is rather quick, but it does demonstrate another of the defining characteristics about both Aayhara and the delinquents as a whole. Within their supposed malcontent attitude does lie humility and the quickness to realize and admit that they were wrong, with Aayhara herself not only forgiving them, but conveying that she also draws conclusions a little too quickly, recalling her own castigation of Tsutomu without realizing they were related at first. It also puts her own prior behavior into the spotlight. While her boredom may have caused her to walk out of the classroom at the beginning of the episode, it's not exactly a decision that could be considered smart or well thought out. It therefore implies that Aayhara's tendency to not think things through clearly or calmly runs the risk of getting her into trouble in various forms, which does manifest itself later in the series. The response to forgive and forget by the delinquents greatly contrasts with the volleyball team's treatment of Aayhara. When they approach again about her joining, Aayhara flat out tells them that she does not think highly of their practicing. Incensed by this perceived insult, the team retaliates by testing her abilities, constantly barraging her with serves and increasing indignancy until they start getting some cheap shots, and at one point, the captain flashes a sadistic smile. Having had such undignified actions taken against her, Aayhara's response is to spike the ball immediately back at the captain, the team having the audacity to be outraged at this. It's worth pointing out that this entire scuffle happens because Aayhara does not want to join the volleyball team. Regardless of whatever her reason for that was, or however she went about phrasing it, the volleyball team's actions, spearheaded by the captain authority figure, are positioned as being incredibly out of line and unbecoming of sportsmanship. This is why the initial framing of testing Aayhara's abilities is little more than a smokescreen for the girls to basically get some revenge for Aayhara's words. In being so immature, they only succeed in validating Aayhara's criticisms of them earlier. A disciplined team, or at the very least a disciplined captain, would just let bygones be bygones and acknowledge that Aayhara is not worth pursuing if she truly does not want to participate. But instead, they've forced a confrontation rather than a reconciliation. With two groups to contrast side by side, Aayhara sees the delinquents as being a group worth respecting, not only because their philosophy about authority aligns with her own, at least somewhat, as that was the foundation of their initial greeting and friendship, but because they have the personal character to walk back their mistakes and admit wrongdoing. And speaking of the delinquents, when they come back to see what's going on, the volleyball team defaults to calling them their usual useless moniker, supporting their argument by saying that everyone in the school knows about them and how useless they are. Although the volleyball team's grievance is with Aayhara, the delinquents are just as much a target for their vitriol as she is because she has aligned herself with them socially. Plus, in terms of the school's social hierarchy, they make for an easy target to reinvigorate the team's sense of superiority and bruised ego. After all, what other way to make yourself more confident than to knock someone down who is already at the bottom of the totem pole? Insulting the delinquents is to insult Aayhara by association, and since it's so indirect and the delinquents don't have the same kind of self-control that Aayhara does, it's also a form of goading them into doing something that they'd regret in the eyes of the teachers watching. The supposedly proper volleyball team hides behind the screen of authority to essentially mock them from a safe position. In light of this, Aayhara formally challenges the volleyball team, her team of delinquents against the trained team. To Aayhara, challenging the volleyball team is not just a manner of getting them to shut up once and for all, it's also a defense of her own honor as much as it is a defense of the delinquents' honor, even if they themselves might want to put up their deuces instead of a volleyball. Since seemingly no one in the school appears willing to help them both in this moment and in general, Aayhara takes it upon herself to stand up against the team and assume the role of authority figure in training the delinquents to victory. On the court, any barbs you trade are insignificant in view of the final score. The goal is simple. By beating the volleyball team at their own game, Aayhara can demonstrate not only that she's more than just talk, but that the delinquents themselves can rise above that which they know about themselves and their supposed limitations. It's a clash of methods, egos, and social structure. But to get there, Aayhara will have to train the hell out of the delinquents, and maybe in the process, the delinquents will learn that there is some authority worth following, as long as all parties involved are respected both from within and from others. In only its first episode, Attack No.1 establishes a surprisingly psychologically independent main character, a social web that finds her a home with the outsiders, a penchant for either standing up to or rebelling against non-understanding or uncaring authority figures, and a path forward for forging both her own future and the futures of the other characters. It is, as the title suggests, a good first episode. A special thank you to my patron, and a thank you for watching. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, click that bell for notifications so you don't miss an upload, donate to my Patreon, or follow my social media accounts. Links provided in the video's description. In the meantime, this has been ZNote of ZNoteTaku. Happy viewing, everyone!